Hey, it's a Week 14 recap plus a Monday Night Football preview of the Cincinnati Bengals against the Dallas Cowboys. Welcome to the FTN Fantasy Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast for Monday, December 9th, 2024. I am Aaron Schatz. You know me as the DVOA guy from FTN Fantasy, and he is Mike Tanier. You know him from his Substack, which you find at miketanier.substack.com. And of course, we'll take your questions if you're watching us live, which we do every Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m. We'll take your questions and your comments. We are brought to you, of course, as always, by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy sports and the fastest growing app in the industry. They offer a new customer FTN special with up to $1,000 on your first deposit. You head over to Underdog and you get a deposit match up to $1,000 when you sign up with code FTN. Code FTN for up to $1,000 extra. The NFL season is here, and who better to celebrate with than Underdog Fantasy? Now, it was an interesting week of some games that ended up close. Right. Now, what's interesting about them in part is that based on the little post-game win expectancy formula that I do, those games were not as close as they ended.
Interesting.
The Rams came out as 89% to beat the Bills. The Chiefs at 85% to beat the Chargers. And the Eagles at 76% to beat the Panthers.
All right. Taking those one at a time. Not surprised by the Bills-Rams. The Rams were able to move the ball consistently. The Bills had sort of a late surge. They had a lot of really quick strike drives where if you look at it statistically, it looked like the Rams were controlling the clock. The Rams had 2-score leads for a big chunk of the game. That one doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. The Chiefs-Chargers, I think, surprises people. But so here's the thing about the Chiefs. Let's talk about each of these games. We'll talk about each of these games in a second.
Yeah.
Let's start by talking about the Chiefs. The Chiefs have a great success rate.
Interesting. Okay.
The Chiefs have the best success rate in the league on offense.
Really? And by success rate, you mean the ability to create a play that keeps them ahead of the sticks?
Yes.
Short, manageable plays like your high school coach liked.
Hey, what they don't have is explosives. And that's why they're lower in DVOA and they're lower in EPA per play. But in success rate, they're very good. So what happens is they keeping ahead of the stick. They're always in position where the next play is doable.
Right. And
which keeps them in these games, even though these games are close. And yet again, they won in a crazy fashion where you're like, this cannot possibly continue. It can continue. Right. I mean, it probably will not continue, but it could continue.
I guess the question I have, because I'm always looking for something actionable. Like, when will it stop? Okay, when will the Chiefs stop doing this? Now, if you tell me in the AFC Championship game, like, okay, sure, fine, let's get there. But, will it stop next week against the Browns? There's no reason to think that.
Well, the only reason to think that is what I've said about the Chiefs, which is that this could stop by not just the Chiefs losing,
right,
but by the Chiefs winning big.
Right.
This also stops if the Chiefs beat the Browns by 24.
Right. But the only way I see that happening right now is through pick sixes of Jameis. And I would say the same thing for the Texans the following week. And, the flip side of this is every week as I look at it and say, this is a week the Chiefs trip over themselves and lose. It doesn't happen. I say, this is the week that the other team backdoor covers. And it does. If you just look at the Chiefs and say, take the opponent in the points every week and just anticipate that the Chiefs will find a way to win, you're doing great right now. You're making money and you're having fun.
Yeah, I will mention, by the way, to Camden Caps that we're going to get to your Jalen Hurts question. But Camden also says, if the defense was better for the Chiefs, it could continue. But with the injuries and lack of depth of corner or tackle, offensive tackle, I'm assuming he's talking about, it stops in the playoffs. And I say that as a Chiefs fan. One thing to note is if the playoffs end up the way we see them likely ending up, the Ravens will be the 5.
Okay.
Which means if the Ravens upset Houston, but Pittsburgh and Buffalo hold serve, the Ravens would go to Kansas City in the divisional round.
And that's the matchup.
Game.
Yeah, that's the matchup that the Chiefs don't necessarily want.
That's the matchup that the Chiefs don't want. I would think if I'm Buffalo, I would rather have the Steelers than the Ravens.
I agreed. I think most teams, especially because the Ravens smoked the Bills earlier in the year.
Yes.
Right. But yeah, I guess I'm surprised by the post-game win expectancy in that particular game because it looked like the Chargers were moving the ball consistently throughout that game, although they would generally give up a sack somewhere in the field goal range, except for those 2 quick strike drives they had. And that was preventing them from scoring points.
There were a lot of pass rush. There was a lot of pass rush in that game. Mahomes got smacked a lot.
Yeah, he got body slammed. And Humphreys was not helping.
Humphreys was not helping, and then he had to come out, and Wanya Morris had to come in, and that wasn't good either.
Right.
So, I mean, you look at it, and you're like, the Chiefs went up in DVOA. They went from 12th to 8th in total DVOA.
Okay.
Even though this was a close game. But teams 7 to 14 are all very close together.
Right.
So, again, like I've said about the Chiefs all year long, if they were 10-3, we wouldn't be having this discussion. It would be like, oh, they're a little bit better than their stats, but whatever. It's 10-3. They're one of the top teams in the league. 10-3, they'd be one of the top teams in the league, and I'll be fine with it. It's just 12-1 seems so big, and the fact is, yesterday dramatically increased the odds that the Chiefs are going to get the number 1 seed. We now have them winning the number 1 seed 69% of the time, with the Bills getting it 24% and the Steelers 7%.
And I look at yesterday's game and hear what you're telling me about their success rate, and this starts to look again like by design. Like, yes, this is not the great Chiefs team that blew everybody up 3 years ago, but when we start talking about luck, if you're playing at a high success rate, you are controlling the clock. You are putting yourself in a position to say, oh, we're going to get the ball back with this time left, and we're going to be able to manufacture the drive that leads to a field goal with 0 left on the clock. And these are the things that I'd be skeptical about if it wasn't a team that has so much championship experience and so much excellence at quarterback.
And past prior knowledge that we know they're this good.
Yeah.
The defense has not been as good in recent weeks.
It's good yesterday.
It was good yesterday, but the Chiefs were missing their top wide receiver. I mean, the Chargers were missing their top wide receiver.
And that showed. And the Chargers have this habit of saying, hey, let's just hand off on 1st and 10 because we love 2nd and 8. 2nd and 8 is such a great opportunity for Justin Herbert, and they just keep doing that.
Yeah. So I think the bigger problem for the Chiefs is their offense is less powerful than we think it should be.
Yes.
And more, their defense is not as good as it was early in the season.
Right. And that all makes sense. But is that actionable for next week against the Browns?
No, I don't think it's actionable really until the playoffs. I really don't.
Right. So that's kind of where we stand on all of it.
It's very likely that they go. There's a reasonable, not very likely. There's a reasonable chance they go 16-1.
Right.
Or more likely that they sit everyone in the final week and they go 15-2.
They go 15-2, and they exploit the fact that the Bills took that loss, that they can take home field advantage. By the way, they open up 6.5-point favorites against the Browns next week. I'll probably take the Browns on that and get the Browns. I mean, come on.
Backdoor Jameis, baby.
Oh, please. Okay, moving on. Phrasing, hashtag.
Rams and the Bills. Now, first of all, this was 2 quarterbacks at the top of their game. Absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Stafford was totally on one.
Mm-hmm.
Puka Nacua was great.
Yes.
There were a couple of coaching decisions here. First of all, the fact that Stafford has destroyed zone coverage this year, and the Bills just kept putting zones out there until they finally switched to man when Rasul Douglas got hurt and they had to put a rookie cornerback on the field, which was not the best time to have to switch to man.
Right. Under the gun, who covers Cooper, who covers Puka, yeah.
The big discussion was having Josh Allen sneak it with about 1 minute, 10 seconds left, and then calling a timeout afterwards. I actually think the sneak itself may not have been the worst thing in the world if you send them on the field and say, if the sneak doesn't work, you have to line up very quickly and run this pass play on 2nd down. But that timeout meant they had to onside kick. And onside kicks are so hard to recover, something like 7% in the NFL this year. You have to do everything in your power as a strategist to not have to onside kick to win the game.
I wonder how reliably you can get quick back to the line after a sneak. First thought, you think, well, everybody's like right there. There's a pile. There's guys pushing. And
I absolutely agree with you, which would have been a reason to call pass play on first down and not call the sneak in the first place.
Right. I mean, I guess when you get into situations like that, I then start backtracking in the game. Like, why are you in that situation against the Los Angeles Rams, the teams that you should beat? And then I start looking at all the things that lead up to that, including inability to cover Puka, inability to stop Puka Yak, bad run defense, like flat run defense, the block kick, some of these other things that mostly on the defense and special teams, the Bills just kind of left on the table yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Nothing's really on the offense. I mean, Khalil Shakir dropped a pass, but whatever. Right. That was all about defense. And then the block punt. Absolutely.
Right.
Camden Cap suggests a spread draw if you want to run Allen. Because actually, if you think about it, a spread draw is probably easier to get everybody to the line for the next play than a sneak.
Yep, I can see that. And you can do a little slip, boom, like a little fake toss into the flat and then have him run. And it's very likely he's just going to bulldoze. You don't have 8 guys at the line trying to stop him. I don't hate that idea.
The other issue, of course, is that the last punt, not like this matters much, but that they had only 9 guys on the field and didn't even bother fielding the last punt. Greg Rosenthal pointed this out on Blue Sky. I think it's true. A lot of these coaching decisions that we debate about late in games are the difference between a long shot and a longer shot.
Exactly.
Even if the Bills do, let's say they call a pass play on first down and they don't score.
Right.
But then second down, they call another pass play and they do score. And so they have 50 seconds at the end instead of having like no time.
Right.
The odds that they get into field goal range are still not that high.
Right. We're like, and that's why I always backtrack. Why is the game in this situation? How did you not create the right combination of miracles to win the game at the end? Like, why are you in that position at the end?
It was one of those games where you come out of it in the NFL, because of the way the NFL is, you come out of games like this with a team like the Rams saying, why can't the Rams play like this every week? And it's not just about the receivers being healthy, because frankly, they were not that good in most of the games this year where they had both Nakua and Cup.
Compare that game to the Eagles game. The Eagles just pulled away from them. Okay, and Coop was healthy, and Nakua was healthy, and Stafford was playing well in that game. And the Eagles are not better than the Bills, I don't think, by any stretch of the imagination. Look at there was a loss to the Dolphins. The Rams are very inconsistent. That's why I look at that yesterday and I say they caught the Bills. They caught the Bills napping. I
don't think they caught the Bills napping, honestly, as much as I think they were just on a hot. It was just their day. Everything worked. They were so good. Like, I didn't come away from that going, man, the Bills' defense is awful. Like, I came away from it going, oh, my God, the Rams' offense, when it's on, is ridiculous.
I think the Rams are playing faster on offense than the Bills on defense. McVay called a heck of a game. The number of he got Nakua open.
People are pointing out in the comments that he went for it on that 4th and 5 instead of kicking the field goal that goes up 6.
Oh, the little pass to Tua.
To Puka, which he scored on, yes.
Right. No, and there were so many, and of course McVay's been doing this for years. All these delicate little things where they're putting Puka in motion. That's easy. You should be able to stop that. You can't stop it, or you try to stop it, and the ball goes the other way to Kieran Williams, etc. Did a lot of that against the Bills yesterday.
Here are our current odds for the NFC West.
Okay.
Surprising. I thought the Seahawks would be higher, but their schedule is tougher because they have to play Minnesota and Green Bay. Seahawks 47.
Okay.
Rams 39. We have the Cardinals still at 10. And the 49ers at 4.
49ers got their aggressions out yesterday, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I liked when Chicago had like negative 9,000 yards in the first half. That was
great. Right, like 2 yards halfway through the third quarter. I got to catch up with that game thoroughly. But yeah, and what we got, Thursday night, we got 49ers Rams. So if the Rams really are this team and they're going to make this surge, they should go out there and take care of business, sweep the 49ers, take care of that little like we got our wiggles out against the Bears thing and stay in it. I don't think so. I mean,
what do you think of the idea?
Yes.
That the Rams just played a massively intense game where they had to go all out for 60 minutes.
Yeah. And then,
while the 49ers got to basically sleepwalk through the second half.
Yeah.
That might favor the 49ers on a short week.
I think so. The 49ers at home and the 49ers like sort of angry to prove some point. And yeah, the Rams playing what almost had to feel a little bit like a Super Bowl for them. And again, because of the variance of the Rams, I didn't check their variance stats. They have to be a high.
It's not as high as you think.
Okay.
But after yesterday, it's high.
Right. I don't have faith in them sustaining week after week of this. The Seahawks, yeah, I don't know what they're going to do at a homestand against the Packers and Vikings, but can they get one win? I think so.
The other game that was closer than expected, certainly, was the Philadelphia Eagles getting a scare out of the Carolina Panthers, but sticking with the win at the end.
Yeah.
When Xavier Legette couldn't hold on to a dive-in catch.
Yep. Yeah.
What is up with, because you wrote a little bit about the Eagles' pass offense just isn't looking great. Like, even with Smith and Brown healthy, and I know no Dallas Goedert, but what is your feeling about what's going on with the Eagles' passing offense right now?
By the way, I think they're 31st in net yards, passing yards right now. And I went and checked DVOA, and I think they're like 17th in passing DVOA, so it's not like a disaster on that end. But, you know, when the Eagles' pass offense was really working well early last year, Super Bowl year with Jalen Hurts, there was a lot of look to Brown, look to Smitty, kind of like get open choice routes. You know, that's your primary. Maybe they run the fly, maybe they run the comeback, something like that. But Jalen's looking for them. He's dialed in with them. He puts the ball in their hands. He doesn't necessarily worry if they look a little bit covered, et cetera. He fires the ball in there, high success rate. They're not doing that anymore. They're doing very little of that. There's example after example yesterday, really over the last couple of weeks, of Jalen going back, having what looks like an open A.J. Brown, open Devontae Smith, and not pulling the trigger. Sometimes pump faking, sometimes staring it down too long, sometimes looking off of it. I don't know what's going on in his mind and his process that says, I don't want to throw this ball that I've been throwing for the last 3 years. It doesn't look like he's going to do it. Now, the problem with that is Jalen is not a check down artist by any stretch of the imagination. He doesn't go from A.J. Brown down to Gainwell in the middle of the field or the tight end very often. He did it a couple times. He does that, holds it too long, then starts looking around and then starts scrambling. Obviously, scrambling is kind of boom or bust for them. He has these amazing plays, but there's too many plays where he just starts rolling right, looking down the field, heaving it out of bounds. There's just been too much of that.
The question is, can somebody stop Barkley in the running game enough to put them in constant 3rd and 9s? I don't think so until the playoffs. If I remember about their schedule, they play a lot of teams that give up a lot of rushing yardage. That's why people think Barkley's going to break the record.
Barkley could very well break the record. We've got the Steelers coming up, who are obviously a very tough run defense. But then Commanders, Cowboys, Giants, those are yards to be had. Those are beatable teams. And again, the Steelers, whatever happens, that's not going to have big playoff implications for the Eagles. So, you know, the question is, like, it's got to be something. Either Jalen's got to pull the trigger on these sideline boundary throws that he used to throw, or he's got to discover the idea that, hey, you know, if you dump it over the middle to Barkley or Gainwell, it's probably 8 yards. Or he's got to discover Jahan Dotson or Wilson, who I think each got like one target yesterday. The backup tight end would play pretty well. Calcaterra, he had a few catches. But some of these things have to go because it can't be wide open Smitty, or it's a running play, or we're relying on Barkley, because some of his scrambles, some of his decisions to try to turn something into a quarterback draw are getting very messy. He's bumping into his linemen. He's running himself into trouble. This is not a good, sustainable model for success for the Eagles.
Hitchhiker's Pie has an interesting question. Do you think Sirianni would bother going for the rushing record if resting Saquon for the playoffs is more beneficial for the team?
I can't think like I know what Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie would tell Sirianni to do, which is to rest Barkley, who has a long injury history and is invaluable to the team. So I'm assuming under those circumstances, Sirianni would do what he's told? Question mark.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I'm guessing that they're hoping that if they hit a week 18 where they can sit guys, that Barkley's like 15 yards short.
Right, and then they can get him a couple of carries and get him out of there.
Yeah.
Right.
We usually review the reverse post-game win expectancy games. There was one this week, and it may not be one you're thinking of, in part because it was not yesterday.
Oh, okay. I was going to go with the Saints versus the Giants there.
Oh my God, no! Did that game even happen?
It did, and it was not pretty.
The Lions won with only 19% post-game win expectancy. They ran a lot more plays. The two teams were similar passing, and the Packers were much, much more efficient rushing.
Yes, that's surprising.
So the numbers suggest that if you played similarly to that multiple times, the Packers would win roughly 4 out of every 5 games, but they didn't win this one.
They didn't win that one. And again, they played extremely well. It looked like they were taking control of it. It looked like they threw a real scare into the Lions. Lions are inevitable. They just win these games. Not in that Chiefs way where it's doinked field goals and stuff like that, but where they just start out physicaling you in the fourth.
Can you imagine if we get to the Super Bowl and it is Lions versus Chiefs, just how much the entire country, other than Chiefs fans, will be rooting for the Lions?
And Chiefs fans will be insufferable about it.
I mean, the idea of 3 straight Chiefs championships or
with
the Lions win the first time they've ever won the Super Bowl.
Yes.
I mean, somebody posted about, has there ever been a team as likable as the Lions?
That's true.
And I think people forget how often dynasties are very, very likable at first. Do you know who was really likable? The 2018 and 2019 Chiefs.
Absolutely.
Do you know who was really likable before everybody got sick of that Patriots way nonsense?
Yep.
The 2001 Patriots were a beloved underdog.
Yes. I remember.
Until everybody got sick of them within the 3 years.
I remember. And in 2003 as well, where it's like, look how this team is doing with defense and with balance. And there's this come from nowhere Tom Brady and everything. And it's like everything felt new and fresh, and felt good rooting for them. And I feel a million years old when I think about that. But
if the Lions win 2 titles in the next 3 years or something, everybody will be sick of them too.
Oh, you can imagine getting sick of Dan Campbell eventually. You can imagine getting sick of that routine. But right now it's still very fresh, exciting. The Craven movie's dropping, so, he's got some synergy there.
Yeah. The weighted DVOA, I actually wrote down the top 14 teams to go through because 7 to 14 are so close together that it didn't make sense to leave out the bottom 2.
All right.
So here we go. We're going to count up the weighted DVOA. 14th is still Kansas City. They went up in total DVOA. Their weighted DVOA went up, but not enough to move up in rank.
2 yucky games against the Panthers and Raiders and a big loss to the Bills still on their recent schedule.
Houston, 13th.
They're still in the NFL?
Washington, 12th.
Forgot about them during the bye week, too. But they had a big win. Yeah, they're still there.
Down 5 spots, Arizona.
And sinking like a stone in the water.
Did not look good this week.
Nothing good about what
one defense in particular, which had been like 11th going into this game, had all kinds of problems with Charbonnet.
Just beginning early drive mistakes by Kyler Murray, just bad complimentary football in the beginning, put themselves in a hole, and didn't have the wherewithal to get out of that hole.
Pittsburgh, 10th.
Okay, just hanging in there.
Still hanging around on the DVOA list. San Francisco, 9th. I mean, big win this week.
Watch out, Rams. They're angry.
Denver, 8th.
Hanging around.
Chargers, 7th.
Okay, did they drop?
They went up a slot.
Okay.
Their rating dropped, but their ranking went up because Arizona dropped a lot.
Okay, that makes sense.
Minnesota, 6th.
Now we're in the creme de la creme at the top here.
Yes. Now here's the surprising. Buffalo, 5th. Green Bay, 4th.
Wow.
Because Green Bay outplayed Detroit, according to DVOA, whereas Buffalo got outplayed by the Rams.
It's just stunning right now because the Vikings were shaky early in that game, but they won by 3 scores.
Yeah.
The Falcons. They're on an unbelievable winning streak. They're playing phenomenal football, and they're third in their own division.
Yep. By DVOA, they are third in their own division. By record, they're second, but by DVOA, they're third. Philadelphia, third.
Yep.
Baltimore, which DVOA still loves, second.
Okay.
And your Detroit Lions, number one.
Still on any kind of historic pace, or that has to fall
Number
off?
10. They are the number 10 DVOA team through 13 games.
That's historic enough.
That's historic enough. I mean, if you look at the top 12 teams by DVOA through 13 games, 6 of them won the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And 2 of them couldn't win the Super Bowl.
Because?
Detroit, because they haven't played it yet. And in 1995, both Dallas and San Francisco had all-time great seasons. And of course, only one of them could win the Super Bowl.
Only one of them can reach the Super Bowl under those.
Right. That was back when they talked about the NFC Championship game as the real Super Bowl, because it was.
That was back when it's like, okay, the 49ers have to stop the Cowboys somehow. Let's get Deion Sanders.
And then Deion Sanders was like, oh, okay, we played on my year with the 49ers. Let's go to the Cowboys.
Go to the Cowboys. Right. Exactly. Where it was just this arms race every single year. It was wild.
I don't remember if 95 was the year that Sports Illustrated, back when the cover of Sports Illustrated still mattered, they had a cover that said the real Super Bowl. That's 49ers, Cowboys. I don't remember which year that was.
Right.
But for that 4-year period, I think it was 94. Because 95 is the year that I believe the 49ers were upset by the Packers in the playoffs.
That makes sense. I think a year before that was when they went to the Super Bowl and beat the Chargers. Yes. It's a blur. I can't remember everything.
Monday Night Football, the 4-8 Bengals at the 5-7 Cowboys. Although the Bengals are better by DVOA and are favored, and of course Cooper Rush. Do you own Disney Plus?
I do.
Are you going to watch the Simpsons cast?
No, I didn't know this was a thing. What's happening?
Oh, you don't know about this?
No.
They are broadcasting the game in the style of The Simpsons. Clearly, they have figured out in the last year or two how to use the dots to broadcast games in different animated styles where you're actually seeing the game on the field, because they're doing one in a Madden style a couple weeks from now.
I want anime NFL, and I want.
Well, you're getting Simpsons NFL instead.
Dope.
No diss on the Simpsons animators, but to me, the only reason to watch this is Mina Kimes is one of the commentators.
Oh, that'll be neat. And the thing is, I was a huge Simpsons fan long ago.
I mean, the Simpsons have been around so long at this point.
When I was in college.
Yeah.
Look at us. So I mean, I hold a soft spot in my heart for them. I'm not out there still actively what.
I remember Bart Simpson bootleg T-shirts in 1991.
Oh my God! We were writing editorials in the college newspaper. What is this phenomenon? And
the Bengals, Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year.
Oh yeah, no, he leads the league in everything in terms of counting stats, yards.
They have no running game.
No.
But the Cowboys defense happens to be much better against the pass than the run. So that's sort of an interesting.
And I think they're getting guys back. I think Tank is back. Is Tank
and the cornerbacks have sort of come back.
Right. There's a lot of the Cowboys could make a little mini play for pride run at the end here, even with Cooper Rush, because they've gotten so many guys back.
Here's a very Cowboys stat. The dead last team in the red zone on offense is the Dallas Cowboys. And the dead last team in the red zone on defense is the Dallas Cowboys.
That's remarkable. That's on offense. That's backup quarterback, 0 running game, and one receiver who can't just get open every single time. When you're in close. I have no excuse for their defense except injuries, and they're the Cowboys.
I will say if Tank is back and Parsons we know is back, Burrow is number 4 in DVOA under pressure.
Wow. All I'm feeling in this game is the over.
Oh, I didn't write down what the total is. What is it? 50 or something, right?
It's 50. Wait, let me look. It is exactly 50. And I don't have it written down here, but the last 6 Bengals games have gone over. Something like that.
I will note the Bengals defense is poor against other wide receivers and tight ends, and the Jake Ferguson prop is 36.5 yards. So that's my prop pick for tonight is over for Jake Ferguson.
I like that 36.5. I'd look for Turpin too.
Yeah, I don't know what Turpin. If they offer a Turpin prop, it's probably low.
It's probably low, and Turpin's one of those. If I get a screen, guess what? I'm taking it to the house, and the Turpin prop is at 25 yards.
Oh, that might be an interesting one too. Then that seems a little high to me. I like the Ferguson one better.
Right, the Ferguson one is better. If you're looking for a couple of props, again, the Bengals defense is a great source of offensive props.
The line is Bengals -5.5.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I would pick the Cowboys.
Same. I'm avoiding it. I'll play the over. But I would lean Cowboys, who, again, they feel like they want to make this little run for pride. I know according to our stats, I think they have a 0.7% chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, there's a chance.
There's a chance. Like there's a complete meltdown involving Falcons and Packers and everything else.
I mean, basically the Commanders would have to melt down, I think, and then that's the most likely way the Cowboys would get in. But my guess is that there are Cowboys Commanders games, where the Cowboys would have to help themselves by beating the Commanders or something like that.
Right, something wacky like that. But they haven't quit, and they've gotten guys healthy, and I have no faith in the Bengals being able to seal out a win this year.
Mm-hmm. All right, that does it for today's show. We will be back on Thursday to discuss Week 15, including the battle for Pennsylvania and the possible Super Bowl preview that many of us are hoping is the Super Bowl preview, which is the Lions and the Bills.
Battle for Lake Erie?
The battle for Lake Erie. The battle for, just imagine the fan bases of these two teams in New Orleans for an entire week.
Want it.
If you don't get the Eagles there, this is what you want.
Want it. Yes, this will be madness.
All right, that does it for today's show. Thank you. Don't forget Mike's Substack, miketanier.substack.com. Make sure you're subscribing to FTN Fantasy to get all of the Stats Hub stats. And we will be back Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern for more of this podcast. So long, everybody.